one absence. With that, I'd like to call to order and invite the presentation of colors from the Jrotc at Jrotc High School. I want to thank the members of the Jrotc from Jrotc High School, including Cadet Major Larnell Gross, Cadet Master Sergeant Tion Garcia, Cadet Master Sergeant Sean Curtis, Cadet Corporal Shamila Bennett, and Cadet Corporal Renarda Davis. I'm also happy to note that we don't need a moment of silence tonight. May I have a motion to approve the prior open session meeting minutes? Moved by Commissioner Richardson, second by Commissioner Berkeley. All in favor? Joshua? Motion passes 9-0. Yep. Now I need a motion to approve the prior closed session summary. Motion from Commissioner Berkeley, second by Commissioner Richardson. All in favor? Motion passes 8-0. With that, we're going to have a committee report, but we're only going to have a report from the last Teaching and Learning Committee meeting. These are all public meetings, so at the board meeting, we like to just give a summary. There has not been an Operations or Policy Committee meeting since our last board meeting. So with that, I'd like to ask Commissioner Berkeley, our Teaching and Learning Committee Chair, to just give us an update from the last meeting.
We had a very helpful meeting, and we focused, among other things, on middle grades, and we saw the middle grade seminar resource book that is used with instruction, and it was, I'm sorry, you can't hear me. We were focusing on the middle grades, and we were shown the middle grade seminar resource book, and had a good meeting, and thank you.
Great. I have just very brief opening comments tonight. Want to welcome everybody back to school. Of course, we were sorry that we were having heat wave during our first week back at school. But as I'm sure, I hope if you read all the details of the articles, you'll see from our administration that we do have a plan for air conditioning, and we're on track with that plan. And I believe that based on everything that happened last winter and the introduction of new protocols, I was happy to see that that worked and there was much more appropriate and advanced notice for people based on the challenges that we anticipated. So I appreciate the work of the administration. I'm glad that we're still on track with our air conditioning plan. But I mostly, from the school board, want to thank our staff, students, and families who made last week just terrific. So I think so far we're off to a good start despite the heat. And with that, I want to ask for a motion to approve the PEP agenda and the appeals and hearings, quasi-judicial matter. Motion from Commissioner Hassan, second. Second by Commissioner Richardson. All in favor? Approved by Commissioners McFadden, Hassan, Bondima, Chinia, Kashani, Frank, Berkeley, Richardson. Motion passes 8-0. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Santelises for her comments.
Good evening. Thank you very much, Chair Kashani and the rest of the Board of Commissioners of Baltimore City. I just want to say thank you to everyone who worked, and that literally is everyone, who worked to make the first week of school, while incredibly warm, incredibly successful. And the fact that we had so many people from central office, North Avenue folks who were standing at corners and making sure kindergartners got on the right bus, to our transportation and operations people, many of whom did not sleep for 24 to 48 hours at a time because they were working in overdrive. I see some of our ILEDs who were out with principals, making sure they got what they need. And then the folks at schools, and just being able to get out, see teachers' classrooms, be in spaces that folks had worked really hard to signal to young people and their families that we had welcomed them, was absolutely what we needed for this school year. I also want to say the momentum was palpable. People were excited about a lot of what is in place and is beginning to happen and occur with the blueprint, but also the blueprint really in the lives of schools. And I said this last board meeting, but I'll just reemphasize it. We have an increasing number of schools in Baltimore City as one indicator, thank you, as one indicator within the park, but really walking in buildings, got a chance to see young people who were engaged in learning. And a lot of times what I say to people is, you know, test scores are useful in judging more the work of where we're going as a district, but they are what we call a lagging indicator. They are what comes after people do the hard work of creating really enriching experiences for young people. And what was palpable was the knowledge that we had families who were working to get their young people there. We had schools that had momentum and wanted to do that. And so in spite of the heat, in spite of our half-day releases, we had some of that. I'd also like to just highlight briefly what those in Baltimore City know to be true, but that we will continue to point out, and that is one, that we do have the oldest buildings in the state of Maryland, the oldest school buildings in the state of Maryland, and that can't change from a quip or from a magic wand. And so what we have work to do that we saw and got feedback, as Commissioner Kashani noted, that we have improved in our ability to communicate with families, to communicate with staff, principals. I would say our operations team and our schools team did a great job in having on-the-ground communication about temperature, coordinated with new devices to take temperature, and real meaningful decision-making resulted in better communication to staff and to families. And that part is improved, but the reality that we still have $3 billion, and that's billion dollars worth of backlog in needed repairs, right, is not going to happen overnight. What we are committed to, what we continue to be committed to, is moving in a manner that allows us to take chunks of capital investment money and put it towards that challenge in a thoughtful and strategic way. And part of that is by really stewarding and shepherding the investment in the 21st Century Buildings program that we know our families, our community members, advocates, elected officials, school employees really got behind, and resulted in 5 new buildings opening this year, and the ground being broken on 5 new buildings. And those buildings, when you walk in, do have state-of-the-art facilities that are cool in the summer and will be warm in the winter. But even with that amazing investment, an incredible lift, we still have a portfolio of schools that requires significant renovation, investment, and refurbishment. And so with that, as we're moving into building out those systems, one of the things that I also want to reiterate is that we do have not only a state-approved plan for making sure that our buildings have air conditioning, and I want to repeat, a state-approved plan, but we have also adjusted that plan based on financial realities of cost, based on bidding processes that we are working to follow so that we are stewarding the resources that our public invests in our young people in the ways that we are charged to do. And oftentimes, and anyone who has worked in public procurement processes or any kind of building processes, and I just want to remind folks that even our 21st century schools, as wonderful as they are, we had 2 that were scheduled to open in January, and because of natural construction, daily work, opened after spring break, right? And we didn't have a big blow up over it. People didn't fall out, right? You know, saying, oh God, the buildings aren't going to now open. We opened. We knew that they were a couple of months late. That's what really happens. And those young people are now securely in those buildings and enjoying them. So within that process, we have made adjustments. We have kept those adjustments on record. We have documented those. We have sent those memos. But I am pleased to announce tonight, and I've already gave the board, our Board of Commissioners, the signal, but we will be posting in the near future. We will be posting where we are with air conditioning, and as we build things out, other renovations to schools, so that the public knows. I was at an event at Central Baptist Church on Sunday. I want to thank them again for having me. And when I had down on the ground real conversations with folks, what was interesting was when I told them that we were talking about being able to post so that they could look and see where their school was or other schools and know when the target was for air conditioning. Everyone there thought that was reasonable. No one there thought that was outrageous. No one there thought that was mismanagement. When you talk to people on the ground with young people actually going to our schools, we actually have incredibly reasonable and supportive citizens within the city of Baltimore. And so our commitment to you is to make sure that outside of memos that get shuffled back and forth in hallways, we will be committing to keeping you updated on the progress of buildings, and so that the public will be able to see. If there is a procurement challenge, we will make sure that that is communicated so that we are all on the same page and messages and stories can't be skewed. Because what I have found is that the more that information is broadened, and the more that the people who truly have a stake in the ground on the success of a project have the necessary information, then actually I don't have to say very much at all. Because the people themselves know, and the people at Central Baptist Church on Sunday reinforced that with me, that it is practical conveying of real-life challenges and real-life processes that, when we communicate it, reasonable people understand. And so we are committed to doing that, working on that in the coming weeks, and we will have updates as we go. The other piece that I just want to remind folks is where we stand with our capital dollars. Now, we are working diligently, and I want to commend, again, the teams, the schools office, the operations team, everyone for really streamlining, right, how we do business. We always have said, I have always said there's room for an improvement, and that's what, in my mind, I was always taught real leaders do. That you acknowledge the areas where you need to improve, and you work to improve those. But I will also say, improvement, high-quality management will never erase the gap of capital dollars compounded over years. You can't manage your way out of the difference between a $17 million a year investment in capital projects in one district and 184 in another, and 192 in another. No amount of management, no amount of tweets, no amount of one-liners will ever erase that level of gap. And so what I want to continue to let our public know and our families know is that, yes, we are improving our processes, but I am not going to, nor will the board, who has willingly backed me on this, we are not going to stop saying what the truth is. No matter how inconvenient it is for certain listeners, the truth is also clear that the investment, the underinvestment, compounded, has yielded why, in part, we have 60-plus schools with no air conditioning. So that reality will only change when the investment is made. Our teams will continue to work, they will continue to get better, they will continue to improve, as we have shown in our maintenance reports. We will continue to move in that direction. But I will not stop pointing out that historical, inconvenient fact. And that is why we will continue to push. We will continue to maximize the additional dollars that we have received. But I will not apologize for systematic underinvestment in the infrastructure of Baltimore City Public Schools. So, from that, I will also say that I look forward to the new buildings that we will continue to have over the coming years. We will continue to have discussions about some of the ways to best approach things like air conditioning. But frankly, we have more issues with heating than we have with air conditioning. No matter how it is communicated, we actually have more days where we have challenges with heating than we do with air conditioning. But we have a growing number of partners in our local community, people from local construction companies in Baltimore. We have energy efficiency experts, people who are reaching out productively to lend their support. And many of whom, yes, are giving us wonderful ideas, but are simultaneously verifying you all do a whole lot with the little bit that you have. So we are doing both. And so we'll be updating you on that. But again, I want to thank some of those partners. We will name them when we're comfortable. But we have some real giants in this field, in private industry that everybody likes to point to, who are also verifying to us that we have much less to work with than many of them do. And so we're going to maximize it. We're going to take that feedback. We are going to communicate the plan for bringing those schools online, and we will remain committed to the fact that our young people deserve the same spaces as anybody else's children. And I was told the story today of one of our staff who said to me they talked to a young student who was going into one of our new school buildings, who said to her, and this was a member of her church, and she had tears in her eyes when she told me this, that young man who was a fourth grader said, at first I didn't really believe it was ours. I had a hard time thinking, is this really where we get to be? And the fact that we have young people in Baltimore City who walk into schools that not only are state of the art, but who for some other communities and other children would be a given, would be what they walk in expecting. We actually had a city school student, one of our babies, wonder if something this good could be for them. And what I will continue to say is, yes, you are worthy of this. Yes, this is what you should expect. And what the 21st Century Plan proves is that when the adults put down their agendas and do what's right for kids, good things happen. So let's put down the agendas and let's press forward and do what's right for kids. Thank you. Now, with that, I just want to also just, I want to mention that today is the anniversary of September 11th, and just ask for us all, because we did have large numbers of Marylanders whose lives were lost at September 11th. I, like many, if not all of the people here, many people remember where you were on September 11th, where people you know were on September 11th. So if we could just take a moment in memory of the lives lost and lives changed forever by that act that we collectively experienced as a nation, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, I would like to bring attention to an initiative within city schools, or partnering within city schools, I should say. And it really relates to the major focus of our blueprint, which is student wholeness. And part of wholeness is actually supporting the health and well-being of our students, not only through nutritious meals and sports and fitness and medical services, but it really is making sure that young people have everything they need to learn, even with something as simple but as important as their vision. Vision to Learn is an exciting program in partnership with Johns Hopkins University, the Able Foundation, Baltimore City Health Department, Congressman John Delaney, and the Warby Parker Foundation that offers free vision exams and glasses to city school students from pre-K through 8th grade. This is an amazing thing and wonderful thing for our schools and our students, and I really am pleased to welcome Mr. Wade Brown, Program Manager, to tell us more about Vision to Learn this evening. Yes. Please.
Well, first and foremost, I'd like to say thank you to Baltimore City Schools, particularly you, Dr. Santalisa, for all your support and efforts of your staff, the principals and teachers, the parents and guardians and volunteers in the Baltimore City school system. Vision to Learn over the last 2 years, we're in the third year of a 3-year study, has been able to have screened about 35,000 children, as you can see up on the board. 11,000 of those children failed exams, and 6,000 of those children were prescribed, had eye exams from us. Another 4,000 actually received glasses. And then even beyond that, children that needed additional care were directed to facilities that would be able to do a more extensive examination and service for these children. So as I say, we're into our third year. We would not have been able to do what we've been able to do in Baltimore City as we're doing now in 13 states across the country without the support of the school system and our other partners here in Baltimore. I'd also like to point out that Baltimore is being used as our model. In the last 2 years, we've gone from 4 locations to 13. And we've been teaching and instructing and bringing our program managers here. I have a gentleman tonight from Pittsburgh is opening our latest facility in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in October. And he's been here a couple days and will be a few more for training and being able to go out to the school system, to meet with the principals, to meet with the school staff, with the health department screeners and others that we work with, to understand how the partnership works and how it can be productive in the community. It's been great for the children. We're even expanding this summer. We went into the county and worked with the county libraries to see children as well, to give them glasses. Warby Park has been great. They're actually giving us our glasses free, so there's no cost to anyone. So I invite you all to along with me, thank Dr. Santalisa, because she's been real integral in our ability to be successful in Baltimore with what we've been able to do. And I just want to thank you again for the opportunity and looking forward to continuing working with the school system. Our goal is not to end this study at the end of this year and stop. We're here for the long haul.
That's great.
So this will be ongoing, and it's really based on the partnership we've been able to establish and to be able to grow.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Question from Commissioner Frank?
Thank you for all that you're doing. This is, I asked this question without judgment because I really don't have all the background or the facts. It's about informed consent and the degree to which we can get parents or caregivers to approve or, I guess, give consent that their children can participate in the program. And I know there are alternative views on how we could get more parental support through sort of negative and informed consent. I'm actually not sure how it works, but can you talk about that question and that issue and how we dealt with it?
Well, we're working on it. Right now we have consents that go home to parents after they're screened in the schools, and we started on Monday this year's screenings. So in the school, when they finish their screening, if they fail their screening exam by the health department, they're giving us a consent form that's sent home to the parents for them to sign and to return for us to be able to examine the children. That has been part of our challenge. And again, not to belabor it, but it's been through the efforts of the teachers in the classrooms that have been reaching out to the parents to get these consent forms back that we've been as successful as we have been. The consent form we're using now is allowing us to see a good bit of the children. The challenge with that is we're not getting them all back.
Right.
And it's a battle.
Is there an alternative, maybe I saw Allison shake her head, is there an
There-
alternative to actually getting a caregiver to sign versus sending a text? Or are there alternative consents that are being used in other parts of the country that are sort of producing more successful?
We are working now with the school system and the health department and to work on what we call an opt-out consent, which is merely that parents are made aware and notified at the beginning of the school year that this service is going to be provided, and they have an opportunity to decline it at that time. And if they don't, then it's given an informal okay for us to do the exam. That is actually in the legal department with schools and the health department, who's going over just how and whether or not we'll be able to do that. And that's an ongoing discussion right now.
So just to clarify for me, the consent form that they sign, this has been explained to me before and I can't remember. The consent form, is that the consent form to examine them or to prescribe the glasses if they fail the exam?
It's for us to examine them and prescribe glasses.
So you have to sign 2 consent
No,
forms?
ma'am, it's only
the same
one.
form to
It's
do
one
both
form.
things?
Yeah, the screenings are mandatory. The health department has to do them.
Okay, so you
So
don't
what-
have to consent to have your child screened?
No, that's
Okay,
part
so
of
it's to-
the regular process in
So
the
it's
school
to
system.
do something with the results?
Yes. And we're only provided information for those children that fail the screening.
Okay.
So no one's personal information is shared beyond that. If they don't fail the screening, we don't see them or have any of their information. And we have to have a signed consent from the parents in order to gain that information from the health department.
And do other districts use the opt-out or the opt-in?
Yes, we have a mixture of both. I have the responsibility for the Eastern region for the program, and in Atlanta, we have opt-out. In Pennsylvania, we're going to be doing consented forms. It just matters on what the current HIPAA requirements are in those particular locations. And then we're working everywhere to try to go to more of an opt-out because it would double our numbers.
That's what I was
Yeah.
wondering.
It would double our numbers. And if I might, and I don't want to belabor this, but
You should
I'm a
belabor it.
product of the Baltimore City school system.
Yeah.
I was one of these children that didn't know I needed glasses. And excuse me, it wasn't until I went to get my driver's license that I found out I needed glasses. All that time, I sat in the back of the classroom and couldn't see. Didn't know I couldn't see.
Yeah.
A child can tell you that their hand hurts, their head hurts, their leg hurts. They don't know they can't see. Unless it's an eye pain, they don't know. And we as parents don't know to ask. So these are some of the things that we're trying to be able to help the parents as well as the children advance. And what we're seeing, I don't know if you had the opportunity, we've had a couple opportunities to interview and talk to some of the children, but we are making a difference in these children's lives. So, and it's an important thing to do, and that's why I'm telling you, we're here to stay. We're not going anywhere because it's home for me. So I'm going to make it happen.
Well, I'm hopeful that either our friend will come back or that the staff will let us know about the final conclusion of the examination of the opt-out option. Sounds like it's being examined, because I think
Yes,
this has
it
come
is.
up a number of times from inside the school system and outside the school system, and it's striking that you said it would double our numbers, and it's, for any of us who have ever discovered accidentally in school that you needed glasses, you can relate to this story. I'm seeing some nods out there, too. It's a common experience. But our kids can't do anything about it sometimes.
Right.
So, really appreciate it. Any other questions?
What school are you an alumnus of?
I,
Which high school?
now you're going to make me tell my age. Oh, it's high school. You're saving me. Thank you. I went to Mervo. So
You can tell us what class if you want.
Excuse me? Well, here, my elementary school was torn down years ago. I went to Irvington Elementary in West Baltimore. Then I went to Gwynns Falls Elementary, for those of you a little older, 91. All right, there. Uh-oh. So, yeah, and then I went to Mervo, so.
Thank you very much.
So
Thank you
Mr.
guys for having me, and appreciate
And
you
Mr.
giving me
Brown, thank you so much for all of your work, and you're right, we do know it makes a difference, and I'm sure that some of it is my own bias as a glasses wearer, but it really does. And seeing, if anybody hasn't had a chance to, you should really reach out and go to one of the schools when kids are coming with the glasses, because it's just the smiles and the shoulders and just the pride of knowing that, one, they can see, two, they have glasses. And I want to also commend the effort, because they really acknowledge some of the situations our young people in. And so we have young people who lose glasses, right? And as the mother of a daughter who lost 4 pair in 1 year, I'm not proud of that fact. But the fact that you all are also attending to young people who've lost their glasses, you're not just saying one and done, really shows that you're on the ground and you're hearing our kids' needs and our families' needs. So I just want to thank you. And it's actually no surprise that you are a Mervo grad, a city schools grad, because the care that you take in really making sure this program is implemented well shows. And it's no surprise. So we thank you for all your work.
Thank you for having me.
And that concludes, the PEP, do we have a PEP today? Great, so I'm going to invite Chief Grant Skinner to the table for this evening's PEP.
I don't think there were any. There were resignations, not retirements.
Good evening, Commissioners and Dr. Santalise. So we have one appointment this evening. Courtney Hill, currently Educational Specialist 2, is appointed Special Education Liaison effective September 12th.
And with that, I will turn it over to Commissioner Kashani.
So next, what we'd like to do is I'm going to note each item on the consent agenda. Please let me know if you want something to be pulled. That will give staff a chance to, and then what your questions are, that'll give staff a chance to get your answer. And then we'll come back to it after public comment to see if there's any additional items to pull. So with that, the first item, item 8.01, policy GBN, the appointment, assignment, transfer, probation, election to tenure, resignations, and retirement of employees, second reader. Item 8.02, policy GBO, absences and leaves of absences, second reader. Item 8.03, the 2018 Comprehensive Maintenance Plan. Item 8.04, the supplemental appropriation for Achievement Academy number 0143. There are also some procurement items, and so people know these have already been reviewed in detail. There may still be additional questions, but these have also already been reviewed in detail at a prior open committee meeting. Item 9.01, Radio 1, Inc. Item 10.01, classroom materials. What's your question, Commissioner Frank? Is your, it's okay.
MBE participation.
So I'd like to pull item 10.01, and we'll come back to it if somebody from the procurement office could talk about the MBE requirements for that issue, that item. And item 14.01, BKL and Associates. Okay, so further down in the agenda, we'll vote by consent everything except item 10.01. Okay, I want to, just to be respectful of the general public, we typically try to not start the next section, public comments, both from the specially recognized groups and the general public. People might, until 6 o'clock, people might set their schedules based on that. We can either take a 15-minute break, or we can continue, but I want to check the will of the, I'm less concerned about the board, they're at the will of you. So are people okay with continuing? Christian, I haven't seen the sign-in sheet yet, so I don't know who's. Okay.
Would it be possible, Madam Chair, to go on to one of the information discussion presentations?
Well, those are typically things yeah, so we'll do a couple things. The thing we can take out of order is we can vote on the consent for everything except item 10.01. So motion to, is that cool with that?
Unless it changes by public comment.
Yeah, right, you can't do that. Okay, never mind. No, that's right, scratch that comment. Are the staff members here who would be making the presentation on item 18.01, the first reader of policy GBM? Mr. Jones, would you mind making your presentation now? We'll do this out of order on the agenda. I know this might not seem like much, but we try to be really thoughtful when we change the order of the agenda, and if there are people who know they can't be here until 6 o'clock, if they show up and we've already done the public comment, that's just kind of not cool. So I'd like to stick with that protocol. Okay, so we're now going to do item 8, there they go, they've got it up. Item 18.01, temporary employment, first policy reader. Good catch, Martha.
Oops, I don't have a clicker here. Good afternoon, Board Chair, fellow board members, Dr. Santelises. I'm Jerome Jones, Director of Labor Relations, back for another policy, and I will move when I get something to move the presentation along. So I can start with what's up there. Thank you, Michael. Okay, so this temporary employment policy is a transition from a board rule to a policy with accompanying regulations. We have the terms, definitions, and the district responsibilities. So we did, again, look at some LEAs in the area and looked at who has them. All the LEAs that are in the surrounding area, except for Harford County, excuse me, have a temporary policy, temporary employment policy. Again, this policy specifically defines what temporary employment is, that it is to serve the short-term operational needs of specific schools and/or district offices, is not to last more than 90 days or 180 calendar days. Folks are paid on a biweekly basis, an hourly rate, and they serve at will, as at-will employment to be terminated at any time. In some cases, if the funds that support the job run out, or if there's no longer an operational need. Employees who are hired as temporary employees, they do have access to our employee assistance program. They're compensated based on the work group, the type of work that they're doing, and they can apply for employment in regular positions. Also, if employees that work as temporary employees get hurt while employed, we cover them under our workers' compensation programs. Again, when compared to the original board rule, in appendix, the policy specifies the 90 working days is for employment in temporary positions. It specifies hiring authority. All candidates, before they begin employment, must go through the pre-employment process. No one can start employment until they have been through HC. We've done their fingerprints. We've gotten the fingerprints back that the P-STAR, which hiring managers use to generate the request, goes through the approval process so that we can be assured that money is there to pay them. The requiring manager and their supervisor must approve all documents. It must assure that the temporary employment meets the requirements of our temporary employment policy. Under this, Human Capital has the authority to review and audit pay rates for temporary employees. We review the application through the P-STAR process to assure that there's compliance with the policy and the completeness and appropriateness of the assignments. And we must approve, the Chief Human Capital must approve any request to extend the temporary employment beyond 2 90-day periods. For the hiring managers, they must submit all the appropriate paperwork, including the begin and end dates, and have the budget money approved prior to the start of employment. Temporary employees are not allowed, hiring managers are not allowed to permit temporary employees to begin work before we actually approve, OHC approves, and they're not allowed to permanently replace regular employees, whether they're on layoff or regular employees that are covered by the bargaining units. And in no situation can a temporary employee serve as an instruction, provide direct instruction to students in the classroom. So it cannot be the teacher of record under no circumstances. They can augment as far as a mentor or in some auxiliary programs, but cannot serve as the primary instructor in the class. And that's pretty much it.
Questions, comments? Okay. Thank you very much. Is the staff present who would be making the presentation on policy IHA-MA, heroin and opioid addiction education?
Good afternoon, James Torrance, Staff Specialist for Strategy and Compliance in the Academics Office. I'm here in lieu of Dr. Fink, who was out for religious reasons today. The heroin opioid addiction education policy was brought to the board for the reasons of the 2017 HOPE Act, where we actually do community assistance and actually education on opioids and heroin use, but also primarily it helped us in codifying our current practice with the Baltimore City Health Department, who supplies Narcan, or otherwise known as Noxalone, to our schools. Each school has the actual drug.
Minor slip.
To give you an idea, each school has the actual drug. The currently trained in every school is a health professional that is trained by the Baltimore City Health Department. For the public's understanding, when I mention health centers and health suites, that includes all of our schools, so that you understand that all of our schools have this drug. And since 2015, we have had it in our actual health suites and health centers that have not used the drug, knock on wood. In terms of it displays our partnership with the health department actively monitors it, and as by law now, the health department will help us in training staff and actual students on the actual signs and symptoms. When we had our discussion with the health department, the primary discussion was educating students on the effects of it, but also recognizing the signs in family members, because we know that if we're not using it in the school, we need to help students recognize it in the community. We understand that also with the help of the Open Society Institute, our school police officers are now trained in the administration of it. So if a health professional is not in the building, a school police officer who is nearby may administer the actual dosage, which gives us a second line of defense instead of waiting for 911. Again, at least one person in each building will be trained on this. And this goes off of the actual standing orders that was issued in 2015 by the Health Department. The Health Department School Bureau of School Health actually has the protocols in place for the stocking and refurbishing of all of the drugs. In tandem with that, Dr. Fink, who is the Director of Home and Hospital Services, will serve as our CEO designee in coordinating with the Health Department, especially for the requirement of community forums and coordinating with law enforcement and doing public relations portions of it. With our agreement with the Health Department, one of the things that we know is that the Health Commissioner weekly issues a warning to the community about where we have spikes in the community in actual overdose emergencies. So we said that we would coordinate with the health department in reaching out to our families and communities affected around our surrounding our school buildings in those areas to educate, again, the students, but also educate the staff in recognizing the signs. And knowing that, and educating especially the community on the fact that they can pick up a actual dosage from their local pharmacy for free. And just to give you an idea, these are the organizations that we're reaching out to. One of the big ones is our City Schools Health Council, which includes the health department, our local hospitals, as well as mental health clinicians. We also see this from two folds that noticeably you'll notice that our students are not on this list, because right now we're brainstorming how we will do outreach to students effectively to understand how should we reach out to them in the community, but also how to educate them on this, especially when we know that students may be facing the real aspect of the fact that fentanyl is now being placed with marijuana and usage. So we want to know that that is harmful to our students. And that's it.
Question from Commissioner Hassan.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the addition in the revision, since it came to policy, of adding one line that includes education. But given our current blueprint and emphasis on the whole child, and given that House Bill 1082 requires certain instruction related to health, heroin and opioid addiction and prevention to be delivered in certain grade bands and certain units. And if you search the word curriculum or instruction in the policy and the regulations, it's not there at all. So are we doing a second policy? Are we doing standards changes? What's going to happen?
So the coordinator who did health, we have in our health policy, which is tobacco, alcohol, and other drugs. This will fall under that under other drugs. Right now, just a few weeks ago, we talked to the health department about what are some things that they can support us in giving to our educators for those other drugs portions, because to tell you the truth, it's fast-paced changing on where and what the signs are looking like, depending on what the drugs actually being used with in the community. So we want to make sure that we're giving our teachers the most relevant information. And that's something that we're working with the health department on finalizing. How do we do that in an effective way and how to make sure that it's grade appropriate.
So in the group that you engaged with, teaching and learning was not on there. Do they qualify as part of senior leadership? Because this is also in the national and state standards for health education
Yes.
that should be
and
taught by health teachers at each grade level.
So actually the national and the state health standards are included in that. If you see in the wellness compliance report that are coming, so that actually makes us compliant there as well because it's in grades 3 through 6. Dr. Fink can speak exactly to that because she knows more of it. I'm more of the policy side of it, but I do know that that is part of it because
Yeah,
we had
and
to do assessment with health.
Yeah, and it's currently mandated by the wellness policy, but it would be nice to have a cross-reference to this policy as well
I
to
can add that.
ensure that, I mean, the title is opioid education, and I think that's an important piece. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Commissioner McFadden?
Who will be trained in the schools with the naloxone? Who will be trained with the procedures? Is it the principal, the school health practitioner, or the agent from the health department? Will teachers be trained?
It will actually be the health suite nurse who will be trained in it, which every school has one. And in the event that they're not there, then the school police is the next backup. And then there's 911. The question is that anyone can actually get trained on it. So we primarily lean on the health department for that training. So a person in the school building may actually go out and seek the training because also one of the things that we're noticing is that the community is actually being trained on it. And we know that as educators, there's only a finite way for us to teach this to our own in-service training. So we did not want to add that service requirement to teachers, but it is up to their choice to actually take it.
Commissioner Hassan?
So given that there's relatively few overdoses that happen in schools, and students are in communities where they may be the only ones sober able to administer, are we going to train students?
So in terms of compliance with the law, I've only applied this to our staff because the law only provides us with protection for if a staff reasonably thinks that someone's going through an overdose episode in our building. So if a student applies it, there may be liability applied to student. That might be a question for legal.
One more question.
Sure.
And then a follow-up regarding the role of school police in carrying, because city police do not carry, and they can't administer.
So
so
school
are we-
police will actually know where the dosage is in the building. It's actually in a lockbox in the health suite. The reason why is because the goal of this education and the reach is to understand that currently the fire department is administering 4 doses because of fentanyl to each person right now. But if it is not fentanyl, it's usually 1 dosage. We have that 1 dosage, so we know that help is on the way if that 1 dosage doesn't help within the instance of within the first few minutes of it.
And then my last question, because it's also expensive and has an expiration date, is what budget is this coming from?
So this goes into our current contract with the health department where they supply all the supplies for our health suites, including this drug, as well as they also supply the anaphylaxis shots as well. Right now, Narcan is around $1,400 per dosage. So they're supplying it for us.
Commissioner Richardson?
First, I want to commend you. I think this is a great idea. I wanted to just ask you, and I know we're not at the point where we're rolling this out yet. This is just that first reader, but I would really love to see this kind of be introduced school by school in like that PTO space or when schools engage parents. Because like Commissioner Hassan said, a lot of this stuff is happening in the community. And so as much as we can get the knowledge outside of the school building into the community, I think would be fantastic.
And that's perfect. It's a segue that we're working with the health department's overdose. So there's 2 bureaus that we're working with now. The overdose bureau, which is monitoring the epidemic itself, and also the school health bureau. One of the things that we have devoted ourselves to is helping them and assisting the communities immediately surrounding the overdose spikes, because we know that has a face to the problem then that we can say that this is happening. Because often from our conversations with students, they don't see it as their problem. So we want to actually learn from students what their perceptions are so we can actively educate them properly on how this could affect them in their community.
I have a question.
Commissioner Lynn?
Yes. So I know it's first reading, you're still getting everything together, but would you believe that, in my head, I'm thinking, hey, going back to Commissioner Sunset, it's in the community and, the students are who's primarily impacted. I'm not gonna go on the student side because I know there's legalities with that, but I'm asking, is there any way that teachers, I understand the health suite department and the police department, but teachers are mainly with the students 24/7, and I don't want to think that I would have to call a house suite person to get them to come upstairs or downstairs to treat my student within my classroom. So just think about the idea of having teachers be teach on this, because it would be so much more efficient and we wouldn't have to wait for people to come, or if people aren't there, I don't care if they're there or not, because what I'm primarily working on, or I'm primarily focused on, is the safety of the student. And so if someone's not there and I have to go find the police department or the police person, I'm not going to go around the entire school looking for a policeman or woman to come and save one of my children.
So to give you an idea of the layers of security for this, so at some of our schools, there is a stationary RN. When there is no stationary RN, there's an LPN. If that LPN is unable or not there, there's a roving RN who is just available to a certain number of schools. So there is a response time that we are considering with the health department for this and their training. So there should be somewhere there enough time to actually administer the drug. That's why we have in the regulation that you should call 911 as well. Because if the RN who's supervising the LPN is not there in enough time, the fire department should be able to respond, or school police may be able to respond. Because we have a separate phone number. Generally, if someone calls 911, they will normally call school police and say, can you respond before we respond? So the joint agency perspective of it, the response time should be quicker.
Oh, I do have a question. I'm
Sure.
sorry. It came to me. So I'm not sure about this. People can correct me if I'm wrong, but is there I don't know, is there a police in every school? No.
No.
Okay. So that's another question. So why, if there's not a police in every school and we have an incident where a police officer is not there and the police officers are the second in charge to administer the drug and there's no police there, can you take me to the next step? Are you going to call the police?
The goal is to call 911 and let
Okay.
the first responders make the decision on who can get there first, because we're not gonna call off school police if case in point, I know that central office is an area where there's a high prevalence of overdose. If school police can respond faster than the medic or the EMTs, it would be better if school police responded. That way, the dispatcher can see who can respond first. The priority is to save the life.
And that just goes back to my first question about consider teachers to be trained on this, because that's a big thing.
So I will explore it. I will explore seeing if we can train teachers,
Thank you.
but it's more of is there a requirement or not a requirement? It's a question, and who's comfortable enough to administer either a nasal spray or a intramuscular needle to someone's leg or thigh.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Thanks. I mean, it's a new law, and it sounds like we are in a good position to respond to it, even if there's some open questions, so we appreciate. So now we're good. Our first guest for public comment under the specially recognized groups is Julianne Kelly, and I think this is the first time we're going to hear from you in your role as the new chair of PCAB. Your colleagues were here last time, Shantae and Jamal, and so Jamal going to give you a little support here. Is that the plan, Jamal?
Yeah, we're going to do this as a team.
There you go.
So
It's
that's
all
how
good.
PCAB works.
No, it's terrific.
All right, Jamal, you want to start us off?
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. So essentially, we're going to be making sure that we make sure we report out to folks, and just wanted to highlight a couple things that we've been working on. The first piece is we've been trying to figure out how to make the feedback loop from the PTOs, all the different kind of folks that people are looking for feedback, trying to make that feedback loop a little bit more efficient for PCAB. So what we've been looking at is what all the different social media platforms look like, what does this community engagement strategy look like for PCAB, and how do we make sure that we integrate that across all the different folks and organizations. So that's one of the pieces. So if there are folks from the comms groups or like city school supports that could be useful in helping to figure out how to develop that out, that would be helpful. And then also we recently had a meeting with Commissioner Hassan about the policy stuff. So what we received was the agenda for all of the policy pieces thus far. And so what we've been able to do is try to figure out, as a first step, how do we funnel that piece out so that we can get the agenda of what all the procedures, all of the projected policies are, and be able to get the feedback from a wider span of people in a bigger time.
Okay, great. So we had a meeting September 6th, and we heard from the heroin and opioid addiction education policy, and our feedback was similar to what we heard here today, was that we were very concerned that the students wouldn't be taught how to administer Narcan. And the reason why is because we figured they're going home, they might see something, maybe one of their friends, and that's something such as being taught how to do CPR, or what to do if you see somebody who is allergic to peanuts and needs an EpiPen, right? Those are things that have been taught in schools, and if that can be taught to the students, we feel like that will go as a part of the education part of this, and that was a lengthy discussion that we had, and we hope to see that somehow implemented into policy. We also talked to the Ingenuity program. They talked about testing, and we were concerned that the students wouldn't be able to sign up for the testing themselves. This is a concern because not all parents and guardians are able to sign up their students, their children in this, and we believe students are often their own best advocate. So we want to be able to allow them to be able to say, I want to be tested for this program. So those were two major feedbacks from that meeting. We also have our first public meeting September 27th, and we'll be hearing from both of those groups publicly, and we hope to hear more public feedback on those policies and programs to be able to report that back to you.
Oh, just as a piggyback on that last one about ingenuity, one of the things that came up in that conversation, just as we're having this broader conversation about equity and everything else, one of the pieces was equity amongst ingenuity and other programming like that, and figuring out what that looks like. So it sounds like they're adding 2 new programs, but there's a question of where those will sit. And so I wanted to make sure that that folks are aware of that. So as we're situating that doesn't land in another place where we end up making a further inequity.
Great. Thank you.
Julianne, I'll let you go.
You go.
Mine's a logistics question, it's sort of mundane, so you should go.
No, I just want to say thank you to both of you. PCAB, since I've been here, has been a great partner, but I love the fact that you all are being proactive about particular policies. And if you could, I just want to make sure, particularly on things like, really both areas you spoke to, but I just want to verify that you do have a kind of a feedback loop with staff on that. So like on the ingenuity piece, which hasn't come to my desk yet, I just want to make sure that before it does, PCAB, based on the discussion it sounds like you all had, I want to make sure that feedback is included as part of the prep that I receive when I review it. And I think the piece for me that's making me reflect is thinking about how we do that more often. Like I know sometimes a lot of it has been, we will come up with, this is what we're working on. How do you guys feel about it? But I just want to make sure that we're being thoughtful about the two-way piece. Like I had no idea that you guys were gonna, weigh in that way around that. So if there are particular issues, and I would also flag the work that we're doing, given, is it okay if I call you by your first name, Jamal? Okay. Given that Jamal referenced, I want to be respectful. Given that you referenced the equity frame in which we as a district are really trying to shift the work related to the ingenuity piece is our work around choice, and particularly middle school and high school choice. And I think it's something that PCAB has actually, has weighed in the past, but I think from where we need real kind of hard feedback is where are the places to start to begin to kind of chip away at the barricades for families in very much the way that you made the reference to the ingenuity piece, which frankly had not been brought up, and I was CAO before CEO, and I got to tell you, like that had never come up in conversation, and it seems very simple now, and it should have, but I just want to make sure that as thoughtful as you all are being around that we have that. And choice is just a big area where we are wrestling with what are the barriers that we need to be breaking down, either through policy, practice, or how we position our attitude, how we do that. So I just want to make kind of a public request that we reach out for ingenuity and knowing Chief Conley, and you should say something about what you're doing now, but on the other piece as well.
The team is being really thoughtful with this process, and one of the items that you brought up around location is something that we're taking very seriously, and that's a very important criteria for us. I wrote down the things that you brought up here, but I want to make sure that Jess Wilson connects with you as well before you leave to make sure we have documented everything that you're asking about, and then we can respond. But we are not that far into the process right now, but the things you brought up are things that we are already thinking about, but let's make sure we have a feedback loop on this.
Great. And also, just as a positive, because that's the other thing. We got to deliver good news with bad news. Ingenuity was doing better with ELL students, or I believe they were bringing in more folks from the other ethnicities, so it looks like they're diversifying in that way. But the question about location and access to those programs
This is very important, yes.
I want to also react to the things that you're doing to create the feedback loops with the different types of parent organizations. I know that Board Executive Gant and Commissioner McFadden are also working with Associated Student Congress of Baltimore City so that we can make sure the feedback loops are robust for the student groups as well. We've heard from different people from the general public when we talk about these recognized groups. Why aren't we hearing from more students? Why aren't we hearing from more parents? Well, if the established PCAB and Associated Student Congress can have their feedback loops functioning in a way that becomes the focal point, then we can nothing prevents anybody from showing up for public comment, but it's helpful to know that you're kind of thinking about it that way because it's helpful to us. We take it seriously, and if you don't know what you don't know, and if you're now telling us you're going to create that loop, that's extremely helpful. And we want to do the same thing with the students as well. Cool. All right. Oh, I know what my question was. You said the date of your next meeting is on the 27th. Can you remind me of the time?
Sure, it's at 6:30.
6:30 in this room.
Dinner will be served, yes.
In this room? Okay,
Yes.
thanks. Okay. With that, we have one person signed up for public comment. Dion Joyner-Weems is our next guest.
Good evening. How are y'all doing? This is my first meeting. I am in awe of every one of you. Big fans of each one of you. Dr. Santelises, you know I'm a fangirl. The reason that I'm here is last week was really hard for me. I have 3 boys under the age of 7. They attend Northwood Elementary School. And I sat in my office and I just couldn't understand because my husband and I do not fit the stereotype of parents in Baltimore. The picture that they paint, we are educated, dedicated, committed to our children. They are brilliant, bright. I am a little biased, but believe me, they are. And I could not understand how I am sitting here after leaving my 3 boys in what felt like a stone brick oven. It was like the book of Daniel. I mean, it was fiery furnace. And I was frustrated because they don't deserve this, as you so eloquently said. So as a passionate, engaged voter, I'm here because I can do a really eloquent post on Facebook. I can send a tweet. I can talk to a friend. We talk to our principals. We talk to our parents. My husband and I, we're in there. I don't understand how that happened, and I see a $504 million surplus for the state of Maryland. But my children and 36,000 others are sitting in what feels like a third world. Human nature is the blame game, right? We can't solve a problem until I let you know that you are the one that messed up. So let me be the first to say, I'm done with the pointing fingers, I'm pulling the thumb, right? I have a responsibility. I'm here because I'm really racking my brain to figure out what can I do. Baltimore is better than this. If Baltimore fails, the state fails. If Baltimore fails, it affects the world. And I say that I love Baltimore. I'm born and raised West Baltimore, product of the Baltimore City school system. We are the epic center of all of the challenges of the world and all of the success of the world. If Baltimore can figure it out, I swear to goodness, we will be the blueprint for the United States of America. It needs to happen. So I'm here because you're smart, you live and breathe this. Real talk, what do I need to do? What can Dion do? Whoa, there you go. Time expired.
So I'm gonna take it first, if I may, but I think Joshua has something he wants to say, and I'm sure the good doctor has something she wants to say. The first thing is to make sure that we, and I literally mean us and her, are appropriately being held accountable. And we got an earful about that on January 9th with the cold schools. And in that day, we were told by Dr. Santelises that new protocols were going to be put in place. She read off a litany. She accepted the responsibility and read off a litany of what we were going to do differently. So I think the first step is to say, you said you were going to do that. Did you do that? And the answer is yes. So you start here by holding us accountable. A. B, when you know that what we are, after you've checked your facts, and I start, even though I'm on the school board and have access to, I can get a lot of information quickly, I still wanted to make sure I was up to speed on the facts. So I wanted to know if we had lied in a public transcript. I wanted to know. I didn't want to take everything, I wanted to just check without reacting. I'm a very reactionary person. I'm trying to get better at checking. So gather the facts. And if that means sending an email to the board office or to the CEO saying, I read this, I heard this, before you tweet, post, scream, smoke signal, whatever your method is, check your facts. Mm-hmm. Once you have determined, this is my opinion, by the way, this is how I would do it.
Yes.
Once you have determined what the facts are, counter the narrative. Because the facts that came out last week were lazy. Anybody who had taken not 10 minutes, not 5 minutes, 2 minutes to ask a question, there was a very simple answer. She took longer than 2 minutes to say it because she couldn't help herself. Right, because she really wanted to make sure you heard her. But if she had just given you the facts, it was a 2-minute response. So first, hold us accountable first. You said you were going to do something. Did you do it? That's the first check. Second check is check your facts. Once you've got the facts, when somebody's out there spewing a narrative that is just not true, the mismanagement is a tired, old, lazy narrative. And 3, once you've held us accountable, and I mean all of us up here, and you've checked your facts and then countered it when you hear it, then you make sure that your city council person, your mayor, your elected delegates, your elected governor, your elected comptroller, even your federal people need to know, A, stop it on the negative narrative that's incorrect, and that you know your way to a voting booth. And I will say that from our our elected officials, right, and show up here, make your voice heard. But I want to say to our city council people, to our mayor, to our city council president, and to every single one of our state elected officials, not one of them participated in the negative narrative because they took the time to get the facts, they got the facts, and they were on our team. We are totally united on this. Last January 9th, there was a lot of screaming and hollering, and everybody was right. Y'all need to get your act together up here because our kids are freezing. What are you going to do about it? And then we heard about asbestos and everything that was on top of mind. And we committed to some change. We've put that change in place. You watch us. When we slip, and now it's going to be put real-time public, she didn't give you a deadline because she wants to give her people a little break to get this right. But you mark my words. It won't be too long from now before you'll be able to log onto that website, pull up your school, Northwood Elementary, and say, it was hot on September 4th.
Right.
Just tell me when it's going to get air conditioned so I know. You need to be able to know that right away. And then when they don't meet that date, you come up here and hold us accountable. I would do it in that order. Hold us accountable, check your facts and counter the narrative, and let those people know what you need and what you deserve. And when Kerwin comes up, you make sure everybody knows that it's more expensive to educate poor children. And with concentrated poverty, you need to step up to the plate. And all the other stuff is noise. That would be my answer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before you walk off,
Yes, ma'am.
I
Other
may not
thoughts?
say this as eloquently as our Madam CEO, but as a participant, as a commissioner on the board, I want to give you my opinion,
Yes, ma'am.
okay? And I'm saying this because we don't get paid to come up here and sit, okay? And I want to make that extremely clear.
Crystal. Crystal.
Okay? And I want to make it clear that everything that she said in the beginning was exactly the way it is. One thing that's absolutely important that we need to put this on the TV, everything you said is correct. And we can make a change. And I hope I don't sound like Obama when I say this.
It's okay.
But you need to, these people that's complaining about the heat, because we were all at schools, we were welcoming kids at schools, and I was at Hilton, and it was hot, but it was burning up. I stood at the door welcoming kids, hugging, kissing parents and everybody, and one of the parents was just livid about the heat. And I took her to the side. Everything that the CEO said, I repeated to that teacher, and I told you about that. To the parent. When we explained to them just what she said, I talked to her for a half hour, 30 minutes. And she said, well, I wasn't clear. I didn't know. Obviously, she had not read. She didn't know anything about it. But the negative message that came out of Annapolis, and I don't have any problem saying it, I'm good at that, is the fact that you have to get out and vote. You have to get out and vote. And when we have to go to Annapolis to speak, when we have to get together to go out and support our CEO here, Dr. Santalisa, if we have to do that, all of these people that are sitting here every board day need to gather up and get a bus and travel with her. Because it is important. If you look at that letter that came out and saw how much Montgomery County and all these other counties are getting, the money that they're getting, and the little bit itty bitty money that we get, and then we have to sit up here and listen to the audience talk about the things that she's trying to explain. You have to read, but you got to get out and vote.
Yes, ma'am.
And you got to have your voice heard. And I'm saying, and this is me speaking, I don't speak as well as she does, but I am telling you, you have to vote, and you should lead the way. Because you have something to say. And this is for every parent and every child in Baltimore City. I am from Baltimore City, went through the whole system. And I'm telling you, went through this before, but it's a little bit different now. You have to get out and vote, and you have to share this with everyone, because you said a whole lot tonight, okay? And we hear it all the time. Read the information that came out in the newspaper, read it. And what makes me angry, you sit here, but I don't see any news reporters out here right now. Okay, well, well, good. Okay, the sun, but let me say something. Let's see if this makes the news.
It doesn't. Yeah.
Okay, well,
All
let's
on
see
the
if it
game.
makes Fox News. Okay, and I'm just saying to you, I go along and I'm with you because for our babies in Baltimore City and our parents in our community, we are there, okay?
ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No,
The
don't
good
leave
doctor's gonna-
yet. I want to say something.
Commissioner Lynn?
Well, I don't want to go after that, but
Which attends a non-air conditioned school, by the way.
yeah. So I was there, you know. I was sitting in my classroom and I was just like, it's hot, you know. Like I was really sweating, and then I had to realize I'm like, it's hot, and then thank you so much, because if that policy would not have come out, I would have been in that school burning up. I thank you so much because that half day really gave me to go home, get in my air conditioning, go to sleep. But I got air conditioning, and that's the great thing. But seriously, I was there, and I did not just sit there and just take it. In this position, you get a lot of hearsay, you get people to listen to you, and I was just like, this is ridiculous. So I teamed up with my school organization called City Block, and what we did is we held a press conference, and Talia was there, hey, and Fox News was there, WBALT was there, ACLU was there, and they all heard our stories, and they all talked about it the entire week of our entire half a days. And then we got a text message from Ben Jealous, and he wanted to come out, and he held a press conference to talk about the heating situation, and that got a lot of publicity, and that was a press conference. But what I'm trying to say here is that get out there, like just talk to people, vote, like she said, and just be very active in the community. You already are. You said you're talking to principals, administrators, board commissioners here. You're here today, and I really applaud you because we don't have a lot of parents out there, but we do have a lot of parent teachers out there, and that's what some people don't understand. Some people get the gist that our parents don't care, or our parents are just like incompetent, and our parents are just like they don't care about the students. When in actuality, we have people like you that are hardcore, die-core parents and really care about your students. And I just really can we all give her a round of applause because she did not have to come here today. And just thank you, honestly. Just vote and, just be here. Of course.
Before leaving, it will only take me 10 seconds to explore this, okay? My oldest is 7, my twins are 5. I will say that with the half day, it did allow my children to transition because they're coming off of the summer and they've been playing their tablets. So what happened is that we were able to, because they stagger, they send the boys one day, then the girls the next, and then they send all of the children. That's how they do it at Northwood. So it allowed my son to kind of go. He was there for half day, and it was like, okay, you can come on home, no breaking down and crying. Okay, we're going to go again tomorrow. It was a half day. And then that Friday, it was full. And we actually saw a difference in them versus other years because they actually got to ease into it. I know that wasn't the intention, but out of it actually came a revelation that, that actually helped us because my little ones weren't ready for the summer to end, and that helped. So thank you.
So we have a couple more. You've unlocked some things here. So we've got Commissioner Hassan and then Commissioner Chinia.
Very briefly, because we don't actually have to be here till 8, just to be here till 8. But as long as we're talking about voting, and as long as we're talking about action steps that the community can take, we need to put the words lockbox in everybody's mouth and make sure everyone knows and understands that the funds from gambling proceeds that were intended to come to education, the item is on the ballot this year to ensure that they do. And while we don't know how that will be distributed, we hope it will be distributed in an equitable way. It's surely more money doesn't hurt, and goes a long way to help. So lockbox. It's for kids. It's for us. It's for Baltimore City.
Commissioner Chinia?
I want to just flip a little bit in terms of commending the students, the teachers, the parents of Baltimore, because as Dr. Santalisa says, we deserve it.
Yes, ma'am.
But I also want people to know how important education is for all of us. I saw children that were ready to learn. I saw teachers who were teaching from day one. And I just don't want us to lose that in
Yes,
the
ma'am.
story.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking the time. It's maybe your first time here, but we know it's not your first time behind a microphone. So with that, I'd like to ask the commissioners if, based on public testimony from our two groups, if our individual sign-up and our PCAB, if there's any other items you'd like to pull from the consent agenda. With that, I'd like a motion to approve the consent agenda minus item 10.01. Can I have a motion? Moved by Commissioner Hassan, second. Commissioner Richardson, all in favor? Commissioners McFadden, Hassan, Bondima, Chinia, Kashani, Frank, Berkeley, and Richardson. Motion passes 8-0. Why is that so hard? Dang. Item 10.01 was pulled by Commissioner Frank. So can the staff who are going to respond to the procurement item, Mr. Parker, come forward? And then Commissioner Frank, if you can ask your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. The contract amount for 1 year is 1.9 million, is that correct, or is that the 5 years?
That's correct. That's the estimated annual
So we're
amount.
talking about a $1.9 million contract with the potential of 5 years or almost $10 million contract. My question is about, one, piggybacking the Anne Arundel County competitive process. And when we do that, does Anne Arundel County in its procurement make determinations about whether there should be MBE or WB participation goals?
They do.
And did they, in this case, have a goal for minority and women-owned participation?
So they do, with a caveat. The goal is 15%, but the compliance on the part of the vendors is optional.
So the Anne Arundel County set a goal of 15% and we set a goal of 0?
No, what Anne Arundel County said was, the goal for this, for the suppliers, is 15%.
Right.
However, the suppliers are not bound to attain the goal of 15%. So in essence, it's flexible. And what we've seen in the past is typically the vendors have not had MBE participation on these contracts because they primarily provide the delivery of goods and supplies to schools.
When we piggyback a contract, which means that we're relying on another jurisdiction to bid, how do we apply our MBE participation goals?
So we look at whether or not there are other goals. In other words, if there are other vendors. In this particular instance, we look at the MBE directory for Baltimore City government and look at that and see whether or not there are other providers of these types of goods and services. Our review of that found that there were none.
So there are 13 vendors, potentially $10 million over 5 years, and we have no expectation of any minority participation in this contract.
That's correct.
And, sorry.
I would say that, the MBE program itself is designed for subcontracting opportunities.
Right.
So beyond the purchase of these goods and supplies, we look at the contract in terms of what other things can be bought besides that. In other words, it might be fuel for their delivery trucks or
Right. We
airline
can't do that
tickets
here.
or temporary staff people or things of that nature.
Okay. Well, what I didn't understand was the 13 vendors, are they considered subs or primes?
They're primes.
So they're all, sorry, it's my son.
That's all right.
He wants help with his poly homework, I think. So they're, could you talk to him, please? Here's the CEO. Right.
That's why you hung
Okay,
up.
so is the reason we don't have goals because they're all primes?
The reason we don't have goals is because
The primes can't
the primes are going to provide the materials, the building blocks, and all those types of things. And then so that's one reason, is that the majority of all the products that are going to be purchased are directly purchased from these vendors. These are catalogs. These are the catalogs all the schools get.
I saw arts and crafts, I saw things in there that I recognize that
Yeah.
when I recognize something, I'm thinking there may be a minority sub as opposed to some sort of highly specialized material around math or something. So I would just say that it's a lot of money, it's a lot of vendors, we're piggybacking, and to the extent that we can get creative on things like this and to try to meet, if not the law, the spirit of the law, and give minority contractors, particularly in Baltimore City, an opportunity to participate on a contract that may be 5 years and $10 million.
Be happy to do that.
Thanks.
Any other questions on item 10.01? With that, is there a motion to approve item 10.01? Moved by Commissioner Bondima. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Berkeley. All in favor? Commissioners McFadden, Hassan, Bondima, Chinia, Kashani, Frank, Berkeley.
Sorry.
My bad. Let's do that again. I mistook
was
your
doing this,
movement
yeah.
over there.
keep
Approved
still.
by Commissioners McFadden, Hassan, Bondima, Chinia, Kashani, Berkeley, Richardson. All opposed? Commissioner Frank, no abstentions. Motion passes 7-1. We adjusted the agenda, so we have already done the 2 information and discussion items. I'd like to now just note the schedule of upcoming meetings. On Tuesday, September 18th at 10 o'clock in the morning in this room, the Operations Committee will meet. Tuesday at 3:30, Policy Committee. Tuesday, September 18th, sorry, Policy Committee. Tuesday, September 25th, the board will be upstairs at 3 for executive session, and then down here at 5 for the next public board meeting. On the 27th at 6:30, the PCAB meeting will be in this room. And on October 2nd at 3:30, the Teaching and Learning Committee will be in this room. Anything else for the good of the whole? I know, it's just so hard, we look alike.
You're right next to each other now. And
Commissioner McFadden.
I would like to let everyone know, if you don't know already, or remind everyone that this is National Arts and Education Week. Passed by Congress in 2010, House Resolution 275 designates the week beginning with the second Sunday in September as National Arts and Education Week. During this week, the field of arts education joins together in communities across the country to tell the story of the impact of the transformative power of the arts in education. So I've posed the question to my students at school, what would life be like if you didn't have the arts in school? So I'm just asking that everyone ask yourself that question and pose that question to your young people as we advocate for robust arts programming in our school, as in all of our schools, and as we just approved fine arts curriculum that is being implemented at this time in K through 8, I think is something that we just should keep on the forefronts of our minds. So are there any artists in the room?
She just left. Jamal, our good friend from the staff, and Miss Joyner Weems is an artist. And you are an artist.
I most certainly am an artist.
Your way to go. Yes.
Honestly, all of us technically are artists.
I'm an artist.
Well, Commissioner Chinia just reminded us that teaching is an art.
So is complaining.
So is parenting. I'm told. All right. Order. With that, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Commissioner Hassan. Is there a second? Commissioner Richardson says, ha.
This is unprecedented.
It is unprecedented.
In my short time on the board. Okay.
What are we going to do with ourselves?
All in favor of adjourning the meeting at 6:42? Motion passes 9-0.
No objections.
Everybody go home and have dinner with your family.